Welcome to the Prison Professors Podcast. We serve people who face challenges with prosecution, sentencing, and prison. My co-founders are Sean Hopwood and Justin Paperny. My name is Michael Santos. We create digital content and our team offers individual consulting services. We also assist agencies that want to improve outcomes. To learn how we can help you, text the word PrisonPro to 44222. Again, text PrisonPro to 44222 and get our free brochure. You can also visit us at prisonprofessors.com or contact Justin at 818-424-2220. Please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. Send confirmation that you reviewed our podcast and we'll send you a free digital book. Stay tuned for a 20 to 30-minute episode of Prison Professors. Welcome to the Prison Professors Podcast. I am so thrilled today because I get to introduce you to a woman who is incredibly inspiring to me. She went through the criminal justice system, but she refused to allow that experience to define her. Instead, she found the strength within to go on and build just an extraordinary life of contribution and meaning. And today we're going to get the privilege of listening and learning from the great Tarra Simmons. Tarra, welcome to Prison Professors. Where are you right now?
Thank you. I am in Seattle, Washington, in my office at the Public Defender Association.
The Public Defenders Association, but she was not always with the Public Defenders Association. At one time in your life, she was just like, well, many people that are struggling and going through the criminal justice system. Could you walk us through a little bit about what brought you into the criminal justice system, and then we'll learn a little bit more about how it is today you are at the Public Defender's Office.
Yeah, sure. So, my life has been, really hard from the beginning. I was born into a family where generations of people have suffered with substance use disorder, and many of my family members have been to prison. And my troubles started as a youth. First time I went to juvenile detention, I was 13 years old. And despite my best efforts, I, at times, got my life together and was able to go to school and become a registered nurse. But I still struggled with, childhood trauma and things and used drugs. And eventually at 33 years old, I went to prison for selling drugs to support my habit.
And what year was that, Tarra?
That was in 2011.
So you said that you went to prison for selling drugs, but before that you were a registered nurse. Did you have a criminal background when you became a registered nurse also?
Only a juvenile record when I became a registered nurse, and they didn't hold that against me. So that's how I was able to become a RN.
That's really interesting to me because I'm working somewhat in the healthcare business quasi, and I have a hearing myself in a couple of months where I'm going to try and get an exemption so that as a convicted felon, I can still work in the healthcare profession. Yeah. But this is really about you. And so you go into the criminal justice system in 2011. Tell us a little bit about the mindset when you went in after having been a professional as a registered nurse, and now you're going in and you have the possibility of losing your license and all the other things. What's going through your mind, and how are you preparing for that at that stage?
Well, at the initial outset of my criminal case, I had been suffering with substance use disorder, and I have been using drugs every day for a while. So at first there was a little bit of relief almost that finally I get to surrender and I'm going to get the help I need and get off these drugs. But obviously there was a lot of shame too, because I had built a life, I owned a home, I was a professional, and I was, facing the possibility of losing everything. So it was very disturbing, very hard times, a lot of shame, like I said, but at the same time, I knew I needed to surrender and get out of that lifestyle.
And what were you facing when you went into the criminal justice system? How much time?
Well, I ended up being sentenced to 30 months in prison. I took the first plea bargain that they gave me after only 3 weeks in jail, just because I wanted to get out of jail. And I knew that I was going away for a while. I was also in possession of a firearm when I was arrested. So I was afraid that I was going to face a lot longer time. So I just took the first plea bargain they gave me and was sentenced to 30 months.
When you went into the criminal justice system, did you obviously had to have an attorney. Could you tell us a little bit about what steps you took to find an attorney and what your experience was with the attorney who was representing you?
Yeah, so I had this attorney already because this was my third arrest in the matter of a couple of months. So when I found him because I knew him by reputation, and I had been able to retain him on the first and second arrest, but by the third arrest, I had no money. So he took my case, asked the court to appoint him to my case. And, he was pretty good. He came to visit me often. And I think actually the first plea bargain was 40 months, but within a couple days, he got that down to 30 months. And so it was, I felt like he was a pretty good public defender, a criminal defense attorney.
And you were confined that whole time on pretrial inside of a detention center. Is that right?
Yeah. So I mentioned I had been arrested 3 times within 2 months for shoplifting and being in possession of drugs. And I had been released on my own recognizance on the first one. And then on the second one, I was able to post bail for, $2,500. But by the third time, I couldn't afford bail. And so I was in jail for about 3 weeks before I took the plea bargain and went to prison.
And after you got sentenced to 30 months in prison, what was the next experience? You were in the Western District of Washington, but was that you were in the federal system or the state system?
No, I was in the state system.
So where did they take you? You were in King County Jail then? Is that where you started?
I was in Kitsap County Jail. It's a fair away from King County. And I was in there for about 3 weeks. And as soon as I pled guilty, I was on the next chain to prison. So a couple of days later, and I went to receiving at the state prison at Purdy.
And how long were you there? Is that where you concluded your sentence, or did you get moved around a little bit?
No, I got moved around a little bit. So after about 3 weeks of going through receiving, maybe 4 weeks, then they sent me to a camp, which was about 45 minutes away from that prison over in Belfair, Washington. And that's where I did the majority of my time before I ended up going to work release, which was for the last 4 months of my sentence.
We're talking to Tarra Simmons, who's telling about her experience in the Washington State prison system. And it's a little bit different from most of our episodes where we are focusing on the federal prison system. So you said that you had a work release. What does that mean in the state prison system?
That means that you go to a center where you are housed, but you are allowed to leave the facility during the day to go do job searches. And then when you get a job, I eventually found a job at Burger King, and I was able to leave and go to work and then come back to the center after work.
And you said that also that you were sent from the receiving center to a camp. Walk us through the difference of what you know about the different levels in the state prison of Washington.
Yeah, so in the state prison system, there's, I think, about 4 levels. There's the maximum security, there's closed custody, there's medium security, and there's minimum security. And when you are in minimum security, that means you have less than 4 years until your release date. And it's a more of a free-moving environment where you don't necessarily have to be on a set schedule to roam the yard. There's potential for more programming available when you're in a minimum security environment. They have them at the different prisons, but then there's some institutions that are only for minimum security. So that's what the camp was like. It's everybody there has less than 4 years until they're released, and everybody there is a minimum security.
So when you went into the prison system, you actually in the jail system, you said you just wanted to kick your drug habit. What else did you do, or what else did you come to do during the time that you were incarcerated?
Yeah, when I was in prison, I engaged in a lot of recovery programs. So I did chemical dependency treatment, outpatient setting, went 3 days a week for 2 hours a day for about 12 weeks to that. I also relied heavily upon the volunteer programs that came. So faith-based programs, recovery, 12-step meetings. Also, some volunteers would bring in some trauma healing classes, parenting classes. I even took a computer class through the community college that offers classes at the prison. So a 5-credit computer programming type class. And those are the things that I did to spend my time.
How long did you actually serve on the 30 months?
Yeah, I served 20 months on 30 months. So I got a third off for good time. And 16 of that was in prison. And the other 4 months was at work release.
So during that time that you served in prison, can you tell us about what you thought might be the best outcome, what you were going to do when you returned to society? Did you have any aspirations, or can you tell us what was on your mind?
Yeah, I hope to find a job, just enough to provide for my kids. I fought tooth and nail to keep my RN license. I was hoping that maybe another insurance company would allow me to work from home as a telephone nurse, a case management nurse, or something like that. And so I just really hoped I would be able to get back into making a meaningful, livable wage because I had 2 boys who needed support.
And what did you experience when you did come home? Did you find that the nursing profession was receptive to you, or did you find resistance?
No, I definitely found resistance. I was able to keep my RN license as long as I have been on a monitoring program for the last 5 years, checking in, doing random UAs, and going to 12-step meetings and things like that. But nobody would give me a job because now I had, 6 felony convictions on my record, and it was really hard. And so I was struggling. I would get into an interview and they would want to hire me, and I'd explain everything. They'd say, we think that you'd be a great, telephone nurse from home, access to drugs, no access to patients. But then they have these hiring policies that say, sorry, we can't hire you even if we want to. And that would happen over and over and over again, even in, less paying jobs like working for a call center for a cell phone company or, medical supply company. Nobody would give me a job, and it just got really frustrating.
It's very hard. Those are some of the collateral consequences that accompany a criminal conviction. It's some of the work that our team at Prison Professors strives to change with our bringing more awareness. But today we're talking with somebody who found a pathway around that. And tell us what you ultimately decided to do with your life after you encountered those challenges, Tarra.
Well, as I was in recovery and noticing that this wasn't just happening to me, it was happening to so many other people, I thought, well, I think I should go to law school and figure out how to change this. And so that's what I have embarked on, a journey the last 3 years, going to law school, and then working with lots of other organizations who also agree that we have to end these collateral consequences and help people upon reentry and help reform the prison system, and the whole system from beginning to end needs to change. And so I've been just working with other people and finishing up law school. And
well, but how did that happen? I mean, you're facing struggle. Did you already have an undergraduate degree then?
Yes, I did. So I had a bachelor's degree in nursing, which essentially I couldn't use because nobody would give me a job. And I thought to myself, well, I need to go on to, I couldn't get financial aid to go for a second bachelor's degree. So I was kind of forced into picking graduate school if I wanted to somehow earn a second chance, or, I thought going to school would help give me some time between my criminal history and entering the work field again. And I picked up Sean Hopwood's book, actually. Somebody in my nursing group said, I want you to read this book called Lawman. And I read that book, and then I found Sean on Facebook, and he was just across the ferry from where I lived. And I said, could I meet with you? And actually, it was Sean's story that really inspired me and said, I can go back to law school too. I can go to school. I can be a lawyer. And I had lots of other lawyers who were helping me with the collateral consequences of my conviction. So, family law issues, my house went into foreclosure. I had the nursing license issue. All these lawyers were helping me with these civil legal issues related to my criminal conviction. At the same time, when I read Sean's book, and that's what made me realize that I could go on and do something different.
So at that time, was Sean just 1L at UW, or was he just starting his law profession, or where was he in the journey?
I think he was a 3L actually. It was in January of 2014, and I think he graduated in June of 2014. I actually came to a symposium he held at the UW Law School, which you were at too. So I got to shake your hand once.
Oh, that's awesome, Tarra. So I spoke at a symposium with Sean. That's really awesome. So when we met or when we shook hands, you had not started your law school journey yet?
No, and you had just released, less than 2 months, I think.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that was that was a good memory for a good time right now. I was just actually leaving, and that was Seattle, and I think that was when I came to Southern California. Mm-hmm. So Tarra, more on you. So you had no idea you'd be going to law school. You read Sean's book. Does he become a mentor to you or just a friend to you? And then you're saying, yeah, I can do this too?
Yeah, he definitely became a little of both to me. He, when I told him I wanted to go to law school, he told me about the law school admission test and he told me how to take it. I sent him my application materials and he edited them for me when I applied. So yeah, he's been a friend and a mentor to me.
And where did you go to school?
Yeah, I went to school at Seattle University, so very close to where Sean went to school at UW.
And tell us about the process of getting into Seattle University as a convicted felon. How were they received? We know the job market was not too friendly. How was the admissions board at Seattle U?
They were great. I wrote a personal essay, told them everything that happened in my life and where it led me, and what I wanted to do now was change these laws and help people find a second chance. And they never even called me in for a supplemental interview. They accepted me. I think I applied with a June LSAT score, and I found out in August that I was starting in 3 weeks.
Oh my God. How exciting is that?
Yeah.
And so you go to law school. Did you do a 3-year program or a 4-year program?
I did a 3-year program.
So you were full-time, all-in law student.
Yes.
But the difference between you and Sean is by the time Sean started law school, he'd already read 3,000 or 4,000 cases while he was in prison. It was all brand new for you. Tell us a little bit about the experience.
Yeah, it was definitely, the first year was overwhelming. I was afraid I wasn't going to succeed, and I've been out of school for 20 years, and I thought, I was so scared that I really overstudied, and it was a high learning curve at first, but I did really well. I graduated with honors, and during the first year, all I did was study. But during my second and third year, I branched out and remembered why I came to law school, and I started getting involved in advocacy and externing at different public interest organizations and becoming a part of the movement to liberate people who have made a mistake and who have changed their life and rehabilitated.
And so what were the first jobs that you accepted when you were able to go ahead and start working? You said that you were doing advocacy work. For whom, and who were these groups that you worked with?
Yeah, after my first year of law school, my first summer, I worked for Disability Rights Washington, which has a prisons project. And we help people who are currently incarcerated in the state prison system here in Washington State, if they're facing, some kind of discrimination or having a hard time advocating for themselves for things like access to health care or disability accommodations, people that are being held in solitary confinement because they're mentally ill. So I started working on prison reform my first summer, and then I started branching out into, representing clients who had, court fines and fees that had accumulated interest and gone to collections, and reunifying families when parents are released from prison. Also working on helping people vacate their criminal records or find other ways to obtain employment or housing in spite of their criminal conviction. So those are the types of issues I've been working on.
And that's why you're a real role model. Not only did you become a lawyer, but you've been just a champion for the people who have been disenfranchised and the people who are going through the criminal justice system and just trying to do everything you can in a positive way. And you graduated from law school when, Tarra? What year?
In May of 2017.
So a relatively new graduate, May of 2017. What was the next step in the journey after earning your degree?
Well, the next step was getting admission to the Bar Association, so getting a license to practice law.
Tell us how that process unfolded.
Well, that process was a little more complicated than I expected. You go before a review board, and they review your criminal history, and they review, what you've done since then. And initially, I was denied the privilege to take the bar exam, which I would have taken in July of 2017 with my classmates, but I was unable to take it at that time.
So when you'd gone through, you I guess underwent a pretty significant expense of going to law school, and yet you face another roadblock after you do so well and graduate with honors. They're going to tell you that you can't take the bar because of a felony. What was your process for coping and dealing with that?
Well, thank goodness I had a solid support group in my recovery community and in my faith community, and lots of friends, including Sean, lots of lawyers who've been supporting me the whole time I've been in law school. And I just, constantly reached out, talked to them, and my recovery community, my family, my faith community helped me stay strong personally. And then my legal community helped me stay strong personally, but also had some great thoughts about how to go about fixing this problem. So I was really grateful.
Can you walk us through what that path is to fix a problem like that when you face a struggle that you've worked so hard to prepare for, and then you are denied entry into the club? What was the process that they suggested?
Yeah, they suggested that we appeal to the state Supreme Court. And this was a very interesting thought because my initial attorney has been doing this work for 30 years in Washington State and had not been able to get the Supreme Court to take one of these cases up on appeal. So nobody really knew the process with expertise, but we knew that this process existed, but it had not been tried for many years, for 30 years. But we all came together, and Sean joined the case along with my initial attorney, John Strait, and lots of other lawyers were providing assistance at different stages, and we appealed to the state Supreme Court, and it was pretty amazing. Argument was on November 16th of this year. Sean represented me and did a fabulous job. I'm not just saying that because he's my friend or my lawyer, but I mean, third parties have watched his hearing and said it's the quality of a United States Supreme Court hearing, oral argument. He did a great job, and we were so excited that within hours after the conclusion of the hearing, the Supreme Court issued an order saying that I'm taking the bar exam.
I'm so excited. I had the privilege of being notified of this hearing. I really wanted to go there and be in person, but I recorded it. It is on our YouTube channel if you want to see the incredible victory. It looked like all of the jurists on the bench were very much in favor of Tarra, and that's encouraging for anybody that's going through the criminal justice system. We need to look at role models like Tarra because she can show us what the possibility is for us to become. And regardless of what struggles you faced in the past, there's always a way to get through it. And that's what we feature here on Prison Professors, are stories of people that didn't allow the system to beat them, but found a way to come back strong with their dignity intact and then make a difference in society by giving back, which is what she's doing right now. And you now have the permission to take the bar exam. Can you tell us when you expect to get ready for that exam, when you're going to be taking that exam?
Yeah, so I'm taking it February 27th and 28th here in Washington State. So I'm preparing right now. I am studying every day. It's a process, just like everything else. And I want to be prepared. And looking forward, we probably will find out in around April whether I passed. And if so, we're going to have a big celebration, and we'd like you to come up and,
Yes. I'd like that very much. Prison Professors will be representing there. I know that I can come up there. I don't know if Sean can get from D.C., but you probably will want to be there as well. Yeah. Tarra,
what does your career look like going forward? I mean, now you're going to be a really member of a distinguished profession, and you've got an amazing story. I also know that you have a very distinguished position right now. Tell us about that position, the fellowship.
Yeah, currently I'm a SCADN fellow at the Public Defender Association, and my project uses a variety of strategies, direct representation, policy advocacy, and community organizing to help move the barriers back. So for people who've gone to prison or coming out, removing barriers to reentry, humanizing our stories, sharing our stories with legislators, changing policy, while also providing some of that direct representation that I got from lawyers when I came out, who helped me, get custody of my children and keep my nursing license and waive the interest on my legal financial obligations, those types of things. So that SCADN fellowship was a true blessing in my life. It's the SCADN Foundation funds about 30 positions every year. Most of the fellows come from Ivy League schools, and I did not. So I felt I had a disadvantage, but they really valued my lived experience and saw that as a strength. And I think that's probably why I ended up getting it. It funds my work for 2 years. And after that, I want to continue to find a way to fund this work, continue to help individuals, continue to work on systemic policy, and hopefully get all people who've been formerly incarcerated into civic engagement, into voting, into policy work, into sharing our stories, because we don't need to hide in shame anymore. We've done our time, we have changed, we've rehabilitated, and we deserve to integrate back into society.
If you were going to be speaking to prison administrators, what would you like to see them implement in the prisons that they are overseeing so that more people can have an experience like you, kind of positioning themselves so when they come home, they've got a pathway to becoming a full member of the community and not really wearing the scarlet letter that prevents them or precludes them from being a fully integrated citizen?
Yeah, I think, prison systems need to really work on rehabilitating people, helping them find their self-worth and their dignity while they're currently incarcerated, instead of traumatizing folks, because then they come out, still feeling like they're less than, and they're not able to live up to their fullest potential. This is a matter of public safety. We know that we have a huge problem with people reoffending after incarceration. So prison administrators, should care about keeping the public safe, and by helping people get the help that they need for the root cause of what brought them there, receiving the treatment they need or the support, and helping them, build their self-worth will only help all of us when people are coming out of prison. Education is a huge part of that. A lot of people find self-worth in education. It's an area where, given the right conditions, the right support, we can excel. So definitely more programs such as access to post-secondary education while people are incarcerated.
I think there's also a lot to be said about besides educating the prison administrators, it's educating the general population, employers and schools and public service agencies, that although an individual may have made some decisions that brought him into the crosshairs of the criminal justice system at one time in his life, we can look to role models like Tarra and see that our past mistakes, as Sean said in your hearing so frequently, our past mistakes aren't necessarily what has to define us. It's rather how we responded to them. And frankly, I don't think we'll find a better model anywhere than to see what Tarra's done. And so thank you so much, Tarra, for sharing your inspiring story with our audience. I know that people who listen to Prison Professors a lot of times are going through struggle themselves, or they may very well be in prison. And we need to present more messages of hope like the one that you provide so eloquently here. And you're just a testimony to the human spirit. And I'm just so grateful to you for being with Prison Professors. And I hope we can call upon you again as a resource.
Of course, anytime. I appreciate all the support that you all have given me. And I share in your message to currently incarcerated people, just don't give up. You are more than what you've done. And you can still do and overcome whatever you put your mind to. So, and we are here to support you.
Well, you have a lot of work ahead of you preparing for this bar exam. I really want to thank you for taking time out of your day during the holiday season, no less, to spend time with our audience. And I just wish you success. And I'm just really privileged to have this conversation with you. Thank you very much, Tarra.
Thank you.
I am Michael with Prison Professors, and we'll be back tomorrow with another inspiring guest.
If you enjoy these inspiring episodes about people who've overcome struggle after prison, please subscribe to the Prison Professors podcast. And if you'd like to learn more about how we can help you, download a copy of our free brochure by simply texting the word Prison Pro to 44222. That's text Prison Pro to 44222, and we'll send you a free brochure that describes the different ways that we help individuals who are going through the criminal justice system or individuals who want to overcome struggle of any type.